Count ourselves in. You're recording.
I am.
I want to make sure. Okay. So I'm Jerry Rosano from Ignite Your Spark and Feel Young. And I've got the great pleasure and privilege of introducing Jacqui Fletcher, who's been also on the Central Coast just north of Sydney as myself. And she's been doing teaching yoga for 10 years, but she's been into yoga herself many, many years more than that. So we're both really passionate about yoga and how it can assist people of any genders. But specifically, we're talking about today women 45 to 60 who are mums who are really busy doing multiple roles and want to feel young and get energy. And I'd love to hear how Jacqui's thoughts on how she got into yoga and how yoga can help.
Well, thanks for having me, first of all, Jerry. It's very nice to chat with you too. I got into yoga as a lot of people get into yoga. I became ill and I had an autoimmune dysfunction, Graves' disease, which is a overactive thyroid. And it has all sorts of horrible symptoms like anxiety and heart palpitations and muscle loss and dry skin, and your hair falls out, and it's just hideous, really. And so I was looking for something to reduce my stress, because any autoimmune dysfunction, reducing your stress levels will help. And that's how I found yoga, and I found the most awesome teacher, and we did the most basic class to start off with. We did a little bit of work with the joints. We did some deep breathing in the belly, and we did some deep relaxation. And on the way home, I nearly crashed the car because I nearly, fell asleep at the wheel. So, and I knew straight away that I had found something really amazing. So I wanted to bring it into my life 24/7. And so I became a yoga teacher. That's what I did.
Yeah, and so what led up to that? I mean, obviously, was there anything in your early life that made your inclination open to yoga? Because yoga, for a lot of people, is a little esoteric, can be, tapped into spirituality, which a lot of people have, questioned it. So you obviously must have been open to the idea of doing yoga. So anything in your early life that opened you up to being open to doing yoga?
Well, I didn't, to be honest with you, Jerry, I never even thought of it as a spiritual practice initially. The spiritual side of it came later. It was very much a physical practice for me, something for my health and well-being. And it just grew from there. And like anything, when you look into yoga, whenever you study yoga, you scratch the surface and you find that there is this wealth of knowledge out there and experience and practices that you can get into, and so many different avenues that you can pursue. So I started with the physical, and then the spiritual came from there.
And so, look, there's so many branches of yoga. For the listeners, obviously, where do they start?
Oh, look,
there's dozens and dozens of, as we both know, as both yoga teachers. I mean, where do you and I start from?
Well, that's why I went with Satyananda Yoga, because it's an integrative style of yoga. And what Swami Satyananda did, he took practices from all the different styles of yoga. So there's Yan Yoga for the people who are very intellectually inclined. There's Nad Yoga, which is the yoga of sound vibration. There's Hatha Yoga, which a lot of people will be familiar with, which has, the physical postures and the breathing and meditation. So there's all sorts of different, as you say, it's all different branches of yoga. And Swami Satyananda took practices from all of them. And the idea is it's a smorgasbord. So you get to sample and try different practices. And some of them you may resonate with, and others you might go, whatever. But sometimes you come back to things. You try them once or twice, didn't like them, and years later you might come back to them again. And so, yeah, it's just a matter of the most important thing, I think, Jerry, with yoga is that don't think that one yoga experience is the be-all and end-all. If you go and you find a yoga class, maybe it's in a gym, maybe a friend talks you into coming to a yoga class, and you don't like it, that doesn't mean that you don't like yoga, period. Because different teachers, different styles of yoga, you will find something that suits you.
Yeah. And look, for busy mums that are doing multiple roles with kids and grandkids and working, or even stay-at-home mums, the time is the essence.
Yes.
And, and if you go to yoga class, it's like everyone knows it's 1 hour. Some of the classes are an hour and a half. And then there's the commuting both ways. So, 15, 20 minutes, blow out to 2 hours easily.
Yes.
And a lot of busy mums just like, that's it, 2 hours, sorry, it's too hard.
Yeah.
So, from your experience, what's a good time? Look, what's the minimum time to get a good some positive effect?
Well, look, they say yoga done once a week is good. Yoga done more than twice a week is more than twice as good. So it's the cumulative effect of yoga practice is amazing. So I encourage my students to take practices home with them. And even if you can spend 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, and you just slot it in when you can. The difficulty about going out to a class is they have specific times. And as you said, the turnaround time can be 2-3 hours. And you've got to have somebody looking after your shift while you're not there. Somebody's going to be on board with the grandkids or the kids, or making the meals or cleaning or whatever it is that you're doing, or working. And so the idea is to be able to have some practices together that you can take home, and then you can slot into different times of the day. And what I'd really recommend, Jerry, is a little bit throughout the day. So if you can do a little bit of something when you first get up, probably something a little bit physical to get the body moving, and then something around lunchtime to some deep rest or some breathing, some pranayama practice to re-energizing a little bit, and then a little bit of meditation at night before you go to bed. It'll help you sleep anyway, and it'll get you away from the screen, which is very stimulating, television and computers and so on. And so a little bit of meditation before bed will help you sleep, and you'll get a wonderful night's sleep. So a little bit throughout the day just decompresses, de-stresses, keeps you moving, keeps you energized, and keeps you level-headed.
Okay, as you mentioned with Satyananda, one of your loves for it is the many facets. Yeah. And there's such a trend now, as our viewers may or may not know, is that, power yoga and flow yoga, it's all become quite physical.
Yes.
And we both know that there's a lot more. We start with the physical, but it really branches out into a lot of other areas. Yeah. So other than the physical, which certainly has a lot of benefits, what are some of the other aspects of yoga and ways of introducing mums to that, or women to that?
Well, the Satyananda style, a Satyananda class focuses on heading towards meditation. And so the theory behind Satyananda yoga is that you start with some physical postures just to make the body a little bit loose, and so that you can sit more comfortably for meditation. Then we usually do some breathing practices, which are energizing. They bring prana or life force into the body and oxygenate the body. And it also helps to turn the awareness a little bit more inward. Then quite often we slip in a deep relaxation because people are tired, and it's difficult to meditate when you're tired. Chances are you'll fall asleep. So we always put in a deep relaxation in there called Yoga Nidra, which is a little bit of a preparation for meditation anyway. And it gets all the different circuits of the brain going. That's the beauty of Yoga Nidra. And then we usually finish with a meditation practice. And so that's the usual class for a Satyananda style class. But we do kirtan, which is chanting. There's walking meditations. There's candle flame, gazing at a candle flame. There are so many different options out there. And it's just a matter of exploring and finding things to suit you.
And so the benefits of meditation now have been remarkably documented. The fascinating thing is that I've got a good friend, Dr. Craig Hassett, down at Monash University, I'm from Melbourne myself, medical school, and
Yeah.
he's teaching to the undergraduate medical students meditation
Oh,
at
yeah.
medical school in Australia. So the benefits are, and obviously people like Deepak Chopra have been groundbreaking. For our viewers, it's Deepak, Deepak,
Yeah.
Chopra, Chopra, a remarkable guy. He's an Indian cardiologist who's basically done a lot of study with Ayurvedic and transcendental meditation in India, and he merges the both. And
Yes.
so massively documented amongst many, many people the benefits of meditation for de-stressing and calming. Now's not the time to go into that, but you can just Google benefits of meditation and you'll see dozens of websites.
Yes.
So, wow, it's, the idea for meditation is you sit, you stop, and the mind stops and you go into this wonderful deep space.
Wouldn't that be nice, Jerry? Wouldn't that be nice?
But in reality, you sit down and I've got to do that.
Absolutely.
Your brain goes off. In fact, it actually intensifies when you stop.
Yes.
So any suggestions on the massive area of meditation?
Well, when I first started, I had a lot of the view that a lot of people have is that I can't meditate. I can't not think of anything. But you've got to remember that that is the nature of the mind. The mind is designed to think. And so trying to make it stop thinking is just trying to push a river back. It just won't work. And so the idea with meditation is to simply being able to watch it. So to lengthen our river analogy, it's like being able to sit on the bank of the river and just watch the mind's thoughts flow past. And that's the key to meditation. So the thoughts will come, the disturbances, you'll hear sounds, there'll be itches, there'll be mozzies, there'll be flies, there'll be things that will happen to try and distract you. And the idea with meditation is to sit as still as possible, which tends to slow things down anyway, but to also be able to observe, so engage the attitude of the witness. So it's almost like you're watching someone else's thoughts rather than your own.
Well, that's great. So in terms of any other defining point in your life that's really pivotally shifted in terms of advice or experience that you feel like has been a real turning point in your life?
Well, I think when I found yoga, it was massive, Jerry. I've got to say, my whole life completely shifted, and absolutely for the better. I really feel that it's the way it makes my whole well-being and my whole the version of me so much better. And so it works for me on so many different levels. Physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. And so I think my biggest turning point would be the yoga, because my background is a business background. I do have an adult education background, so I've taught a little bit at TAFE and so on, but really that all kind of led me to where I am now. So yoga is definitely the way to go. And to me, it seems to solve most of my issues. So I just can't rave about it enough, really.
And what's the best piece of advice, the most important one piece of advice that's ever been given to you in your life?
Came from my dad. I've got to say, it was his birthday yesterday, actually.
Oh, right.
And he always said, nothing is ever wasted. And so I would go on a course and I'd come home and I'd say, I don't know whether I'll ever use that. And he would always say, nothing is ever wasted. And he was right. Everything, if you can get a little bit of something from everything that you do, you're on track.
And so flowing on from that, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to the listeners? If it had to be
yoga.
Yoga. Do yoga.
Do yoga. I can't emphasize that enough. But if we wanted to, because they're probably sick of hearing about yoga now. So another suggestion I would make to people, and especially if you're looking to maintain higher levels of energy, because we do get tired, and I would suggest, if you can, to try and give up sugar. Sugar is a big part of creating these cycles in your day where you have elevated sugar levels and then you crash and then you crave more sugar. And sugar is in everything these days. And so the more you can avoid sugar, use natural sweeteners, have fruit, have a little bit of honey or maple syrup or whatever, because sugar is really addictive, and the more you have, the more you want. And it just trashes your energy. So that would be a piece of advice I would give, apart from take up yoga.
So what's one of your personal habits that you would say is one of the main reasons for your success as an outstanding yoga teacher?
Well, I practice. That's the thing with Satyananda. We emphasize, because it was a 2.5-year full-time course for me to become a yoga teacher. And 2 of those years was developing my own practice. And it was only the last half of the year, the last 6 months of the course, which involved actually the teaching side of it. So it's all about developing your own practice. And so the recommendation is you don't teach what you don't practice yourself. And so I practice 5, 6, 7 days a week. And that enables me to have a better understanding to be able to give to my students recommendations on how to do practices that are a little bit more safely, and how to get the most out of their practice, because I've already done it myself, or I've made some mistakes myself, and I can transmit those and help my students through those and be able to navigate through those. So.
Now, are there any tools or resources you'd recommend for the listeners, on their approach to yoga and how they can get more energy and feel young from that?
Well, you can go to the Satyananda website and put in your postcode, and that will direct you to a local Satyananda teacher, which you might like to explore. Or you can explore, all sorts of other different styles of yoga as well. So the internet is an invaluable resource to be able to find a yoga style that suits you. And there's lots of things on YouTube, little samples of yoga classes that you can try out as well. For a dietary perspective, and to be able to kind of live a more simple life, because I think one of the things that makes us so stressed is that we're trained to consume so much that we need to work every hour that God sends to try and pay for it all. And if we simplify our lives a little bit and spend less money, you'd be amazed about how much less you need to earn. And there's a blog called Down to Earth, and that's done by Rhonda Hetzel. And she's a retired lady, her and her husband. And there's just all sorts of things on there, like, making your own washing liquid and just stuff that you can do to just simplify your life, make things cheaper for yourself. And it's a very rewarding way of living, really. The other thing, too, is there's a blog by Swami Ananda Kumar. He's a meditation teacher.
I'm wondering whether you could spell those out.
Yes.
Because there are some unusual Indian names there.
Yes, there are. So
that was Down to Earth.
Down to Earth by Rhonda, RHONDA, Hetzel, HETZEL.
Is that downtoearth.com?
It's a blog. So
it's a blog. Okay. Yeah. So how do the listeners connect to a blog?
I'm not very good with the technical side of things. I just put in Down to Earth, Rhonda Hetzel, and up it came.
Okay, on Google.
Yeah, Google. The master of Google.
Yes.
And then there's another one called The Power of Awareness, once again a blog. And this is by Swami Ananda, ANANDA, Kumar, KUMAR. And he's a meditation teacher. He's been teaching for 20, 25 years all around the world. And the Power of Awareness blog that he has is really just to give you inspiration to encourage you to have a regular meditation practice. And he gives you some tips and pointers on what you might find when you go inside the void. So that's a good resource. I have a Facebook page, if anybody's on Facebook. It's Avalokita Yoga. So that's AVALOKITA Yoga. And it's a Facebook page. And I always try and put things up there that are inspirational and informative. A little bit of stuff about yoga and meditation and some fun stuff too. And it also provides a link to, you know, a class timetable and so on. If you live in the area, you might like to come along to a class, you're more than welcome to come. I'm in Watanabe or Wyong on the Central Coast. So, yes, I think those...
I think you mentioned, Jacqui, that you're thinking of videoing and putting some of your videos online. So rather than Watanabe, it's the www, World Wide Web. People can experience you
online. I'm putting together a website, and you will know, Jerry, how extraordinarily time poor we can all be and how much time it takes to put together these programs. So it's been a work in progress, but it's on its way. And so, yes, I'm aiming to do a yoga website which is accessible to everyone. So carers, people, perhaps you're caring for a parent or somebody who is disabled, or a partner who is not well and you can't get out to a yoga class. It's designed to be accessible for everybody. And it's going to have all sorts of options to be able to put together a yoga practice that suits you, which is very much in the vein of Satyananda.
So they can contact that via your Facebook, then you'll have a link on your Facebook, obviously.
Exactly. So we'll keep you posted as to the progress of the website on the Facebook page.
Yeah.
But you might like to just plug into the Facebook page and get a flavour to see whether, you know, this would be something that you would be interested in, whether what I say or the style of yoga I teach connects with you or resonates with you. So...
Now, we've spoken about energy. You know, you can get energy by breathing. You've mentioned that. And then we've also mentioned the important one of reducing sugars, because that plays havoc with your energy.
Yes.
Energy swings.
Yes.
What about the area of feeling young? So that's an area where women particularly are under, you know, pressure these days with all the different surgeries and, you know, all the different celebrities going through these different surgeries and looking good and all this stuff. So what, from your point of view, being a woman and being committed to yoga, what's your viewpoint on this whole thing of, you know, feeling young and being young and turning back the clock, which can be really manipulated by the cosmetic industry.
Absolutely.
And quite frankly, from the, you know, cosmetic specialists industry as well.
They're looking for you to spend money. It's the consumption thing again, Jerry. But I think if you feel well, then that changes everything. You look well, you look young, and etc. So if you can create it from the inside rather than from the outside, and that's what they're trying to get us to do, to make the outside look young, and hopefully it'll soak inwards. Whereas the yoga alternative is the other way around. So we make ourselves young on the inside and it radiates outwards. And so there is a fitness triangle. There's flexibility, strength, and endurance. Those are the three things that we work on when we work on the human body. And quite often women ignore the strength side of things. And so what they often focus on, if they do a little bit of gym work, they do lots of flexibility work, they do a fair bit on endurance, so lots of cardio stuff, but very little on the strength. And you need a combination of those three to keep the human body in good condition. And building your strength, such as your upper body strength and your leg strength, all of that makes you feel younger. You're less likely to groan when you sit down or stand up out of a chair. All those little things. Or if you're down on the floor with the grandkids or the kids and you're feeling like you can't get up, you need to do something to strengthen and to increase your flexibility and endurance. And if you work with those three things and work with them in harmony, then your well-being will flow from that.
Yeah, it's all about from the inside out rather than the outside in.
Exactly.
And also that lovely aphorism, which is like, who knows how old it is, as above, so below,
Yeah,
as within, so without. So which is quite often doing a whole 180 degree on our whole culture, which
yes,
as without, so within, and that, you know, our whole Western culture has only been around 300 years.
exactly, exactly.
Whereas a lot of these, you know, the Indian culture has been around for, you know, certainly over 2,000 years, and even our good Lord Jesus, basically, the kingdom lies within. So you've got the yogis, Christ, you know, all these remarkable mentors, if I
Yeah,
could use that word,
yeah,
are all saying the same thing. And yet, you know, our last 200 years, and it's getting more and more consumed by consumerism, is more and more as without, so within.
exactly,
It's a
exactly.
pinprick on the whole continuum.
Exactly, exactly right. Well, we've got to keep that economy churning over, Jerry.
So, look, I'm sure our listeners have got terrific inspiration. You know, the fact you being a woman, and the fact that you know, you don't have to spend, as you mentioned, the 2.5 hours, 3 hours. You can just do it as you said, just small increments. And your big skill was your ability to do the yoga regularly. And
Yes,
there's that regularity of practice, and the ability to also, within that, behind that, is the ability to carve out a particular time.
yes,
And
that's
and
very important, Jerry. It as part of the regularity, because the body and the mind will get used to that. And so, if you're always getting up at, say, for example, 5:30 or 6 o'clock, just bring it back half an hour, a little bit of quiet time before everybody else gets up. Make it the same time every day if you can. And it's like going to bed at night. Try and go to bed at, say, at 9:30. So you want to try and start to meditate at about 9 o'clock. And so regularity, so a little bit every day and at the same time every day, builds a habit. And it takes, what do they say, 8 weeks or 13 weeks or something to build a habit. And so regularity of practice is a key part of that.
and would you recommend the same spot, same location each time?
Absolutely. Get a nice little area that has things in it that are treasured to you, that means something to you. So you can have photos of the family there if you want to. Flowers are nice, little decorations, some things that you might have picked up somewhere that are special to you because of the memories they hold. Perhaps there's something from your family, your mother or your grandmother, that is special to you. And just decorate and have that little area as your little space. And a little bit of incense or some essential oils to make it smell nice, keeping it clean and tidy and so on, and it will just feel good. It'll encourage you to get there onto the mat, because they say the hardest thing with yoga practice is getting onto the mat.
Look, thank you so much for your wonderful pearls of wisdom based on a whole decade of teaching.
My pleasure, Jerry.
And what I find inspiring, you know, is that neither of us are 19.
No, that's right.
So, you know, yoga is one of those wonderful things that you can do well into your 70s and your 80s and your 90s.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I'm very inspired myself by BKS Iyengar, the founder of Iyengar yoga, and he was still teaching yoga in China in his 90s.
Yep. Yep.
So as long as you can breathe,
yeah,
you can do yoga.
That's right. That's right. And a lot of people say to me that one of the recent things that I've been getting from people is, I'm not flexible enough to do yoga. And I say to them, well, that's like saying, you know, I'm not drunk enough to have a drink. It's just crazy. Yeah, that's how you get flexible, is to do yoga. And to say that you're not flexible enough so you can't do yoga is just setting yourself up for failure. So just give it a go.
Yeah, or the classical thing is, you know, I've been stiff and inflexible all my life.
Yes.
So, that's it, you know, yeah. Done deal.
There's my excuse.
Done. You know, it's the muscles designed to stretch.
Yes.
And go to any yoga class, you don't start off doing the splits first class.
Exactly, exactly. If you do, that teacher needs a good talking to. But the other thing to remember too, Jerry, is that there is an intimate relationship between the body and the mind. And so if the body becomes more flexible, the mind will become more flexible and vice versa. And so it's a very important thing to remember. And strength and willpower, physical strength and willpower will translate to an emotional and mental strength and willpower. So there's an intimate relationship there.
That's wonderful. So, look, thank you so much. And if the listeners want to, and viewers, quite frankly, because it's audio-visual,
Yes.
want to contact you, it's the Facebook. So if you could just go over that once again, the name of your Facebook.
Yes, it's Avalokita Yoga. So that's Avalokita Yoga. And it's on Facebook. Or they can call me. My number is 02 for New South Wales, 4353 3874.
And I'm just chuckling because this is www, World Wide Web, and the Australian is 661.
61. And a plus, I think, a plus 61.
Yeah, and for all those global listeners, it's 61, then you delete the 0, so it's 612, and then it goes into Jacqui's number.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and I'm sure Jacqui would be more than happy to give some more individual personal advice. This has been a general discussion, so feel free to contact Jacqui, and I'm sure she'd be more than happy to
yes, indeed,
to pass on her pearls of wisdom to you individually. So, thanks again, and as we say in the Indian tradition, namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste.